The Australian Financial Review.
And if I think about the advice that I hear often bandied about to young people in their careers, it's, oh, don't stay in a role too long. I'm quite the opposite. If you spend 3 years in 20 roles, you'll be mediocre at 20 things, and you'll have 20 groups of people who you might vaguely remember a little bit about.
Hi, I'm Sally Patton, editor of Boss from the Australian Financial Review, and welcome to 15 Minutes with the Boss, a podcast about success and failure and everything in between. And along the way, we're hoping to get some really great advice from our leaders. My guest today is Chris Andrews, the Chief Executive of La Trobe Financial, who is in the Melbourne studio where I am not. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Great to be with you, Sally.
Thank you so much for coming in on this beautiful day, at least beautiful in Sydney.
Beautiful in Melbourne too. Beautiful winter's day in Melbourne.
Now, Chris, as I said, you're the Chief Executive of La Trobe Financial. La Trobe Financial is an asset manager and you oversee more than $20 billion of assets on behalf of 120,000 investors, including mums and dads and big institutions. You're mainly invested in real estate loans and loans to companies, but you are looking to expand into other areas such as loans to infrastructure. So have you always liked financial markets? What do you like about them in particular?
Firstly, our customers are just an amazing group of people, and it's a privilege to be able to help them through complex decisions in their life. As a kid, though, Sally, since it turned out I wasn't going to be an AFL star, I started off wanting to be a lawyer. So that was where my career began. And I'd like to say it was a well-thought-through plan that saw me eventually CEO of a fast-growing alternative asset management platform. But really, it was just putting my sort of shoulder to the wheel and taking advantage of the opportunities that arose. Maybe it's a little bit of an accidental career, but it's been a very blessed one.
Okay, I'm sure we'll get to more of that later. We've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to start the clock right now. My first question is about your morning routine. Are you one of these people that gets up at 4:30 and runs half a marathon every morning?
Oh, Sally, unfortunately, and I don't want to be a cliche, but I'm a former swimmer. So actually, yes, I do get up at 4:30 and I go to the gym. And
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, I do. It's just, for years and years I did that as a swimmer way back at the Nunawading Swimming Club back in the late 80s and early 90s. I had a wonderful time there, but it did inculcate in me some very bad habits, and early rising is one of them.
So you've been getting up at 4:30 for your entire life?
I can't claim guilty to that through university years and perhaps in my early professional days, but I do like getting up and hitting the day pretty hard. These days, of course, the schedule can end up with some later nights and those sorts of things, so I have some flexibility in there, but I do like to get up early and get a workout in if I can before I spend most of my day sitting behind the desk, so it is good to get up and get moving.
So did being a squad swimmer make you disciplined?
It did, Sally. There's so many wonderful things I think that people can get from investing, time in sport. And it's discipline, it's the teamwork, it's focusing on goals. You learn to push yourself to places that you might not have thought were possible. And I think one thing that you often note about sports people when you see them in a business setting is they've got more patience. They understand that any great journey will have setbacks, that things won't go exactly as you want. And I do see that as a consistent pattern in people who've been really committed to their sport at whatever level, whether that's professional or just in their own personal time.
Did the swimming also give you discipline around what you eat, and particularly what you eat for breakfast and protein and things like that?
I don't know whether it's discipline or whether it just rewires you. I don't mind having a double serving of dessert if it's on offer and if it's particularly nice. But I quickly find the body just demands that I start giving it healthy food again. So actually, it's less about the discipline and it's more about wiring in habits that then don't require discipline because they're just what you naturally gravitate towards. I just remember on one of the gyms I go to, there was written up on the wall, motivation gets you started, but it's habit that keeps you going. Habit formation is the critical part, rather than sort of this idea of forcing yourself to take the next step and the next step. There's a bit of that always, that discipline thing, but if you rely on that forever, you're going to tax your reserves of willpower.
Yeah, no, so true. Okay, Chris, my next question is, Did you have a pivotal moment in your career that changed the path of what you were doing?
There's a real clear one at La Trobe Financial. So, of course, once upon a time, we were sort of a non-bank lender, and then the global financial crisis hit. And I'd been in the business as senior legal counsel there for a few years at the time. And I can remember we had this sort of small fund which was ticking along and going nicely, had been producing good results for investors for many years, but it had been sort of a bit of a sideline for the business. We saw all of the disruption caused to financial markets by the global financial crisis, and as a business we said we just don't like that non-bank model. So I got the opportunity to take this fund, as it was then, and grow it into something special. So that was a really pivotal moment, because the next 15 years, if you like, of my life were all about growing that fund. Going back to what we were talking about at the start, when you think today, 120,000 investors, it was just a staggering opportunity that I was presented with.
So did you put your hand up as general counsel and say, I want to run that fund? Because that's a very big step, very big career change.
Actually, the way it happened was a little bit more accidental than that. What happened was that fund at the time was about $350 million in size. And I can remember in an executive meeting one day, I said, that fund should be, and I stopped for a second and thought of the biggest number I could possibly think of, Sally, and I said, that should be $1 billion. The mood around the table was, okay then, Chris, smart Alec, go and make it $1 billion. So I won't pretend that there was a whole lot of strategy and thought about the direction my career was travelling. It was an exciting moment, but one, I suppose, for which I was appropriately, completely inadequately prepared.
But that's quite a flippant remark to make. What's the lesson there?
Well, the lesson there is take opportunities when they present. And one thing that you see in young professionals is sometimes they come into a role and they have a very templated view of what their career will look like. And they've got almost a checklist. I've got to do this and then I've got to... That's not how life works. Opportunities present. And if you are testing life against your template, you'll miss all the best opportunities in your life.
That's actually really good advice. I love that. Okay, my next question is, what is the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
I think of the partner I was articled to, David Polton at Minters back in the day, and I remember him giving me a piece of advice when we were involved in a particularly heated matter about putting your ego to one side and just focusing on the outcome. And that, for me, completely transformed my career, because I suppose I was a pretty punchy young fella and probably needed to hear that advice, Sally, and that has stood me in incredibly good stead ever since. You spend most of your time as a leader biting your tongue. It's not about you. It's not about the things that make you feel good. You've got a team who are busting their gut for whatever the mission is, the objective of the company, and your job as a leader is to make their jobs as easy as you possibly can. Your role is to find what will unlock the best side of that person. And that doesn't mean, by the way, shirking the tough conversations. You owe it to that person that they hear it from you very directly and clearly, so that they know what the cultural standards are, they know what the behavioural expectations are, but you've got to do it in a way that's measured, balanced and unemotional. And, all those things you might want to say, those little jabs you might want to send in their direction, you have to leave that alone. That's
actually really good advice, to put your ego to one side and focus on getting the best out of the people around you.
100%, Sally. It's a demanding job leading a big team. And perhaps the most demanding part of it is realising the emotional satisfaction. That's not for you.
Chris, stay where you are. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into the chatterbox. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to 15 Minutes with the Boss. I'm here with Chris Andrews, the Chief Executive of La Trobe Financial. Now, Chris, this is our section called the Chatterbox. The Chatterbox today is in front of me, not you, because we're in different studios. So you're going to have to trust me that I'm going to be honest and pick out questions that you're prepared to answer.
Complete trust, Sally, complete trust.
Thank you very much. I will have a fish on your behalf. Okay, here we go. Who is a leader, business or otherwise, whom you really admire and why?
We have a wonderful partnership with the Collingwood Football Club, Sally. We're one of their premier partners, and I know football clubs divide people depending on who you support.
Particularly Collingwood.
Particularly Collingwood. And I will say in my personal life, I may have another team. So I've been on that journey myself. But as we've sat beside the Collingwood team and I watch the great work that the leaders there have done, the current president, Barry Karp, but their prior presidents, Jeff Brown, Eddie Maguire, their CEO, Craig Kelly, their coach, Craig McRae, they are doing an amazing job down there at Collingwood, and certainly we're very proud to be a partner of theirs.
So what do you think you've learned from someone like Craig McRae, the coach?
He has done an extraordinary job of uniting the players around a set of standards of behaviour that is rare in any organisation. So the players hold themselves to their highest view. So you and I were talking earlier, Sally, about the role of leader and your role to bring out the best, if you like, in everyone that you're dealing with. And Craig McRae, with his focus on acting like a winner, which doesn't just mean a winner on the scoreboard, it's a winner in life. He has conveyed that message in a really calm, consistent and measured way from the first day he stepped into that club. You know, the on-field success, that happens, and in a football club you'll have good times and you'll have bad times, but if you embed that culture, wow, you've got something really powerful and repeatable.
So when he is embedding that idea of being a winner in life to the players, what do you think that actually means for them?
There are a lot of things that you could talk to, but it's about your little micro behaviours. It's the behaviour in every moment. So when you lose a game, do you throw yourself on the ground and slump there like you just lost a loved one, or do you walk off with your head held high saying, they got us this week, we'll come back, we'll learn from that, we'll attack the game again next week? It's the way you conduct yourself in the weights room. Do you walk around with your shirt off, or are you conscious of the fact that there will be other people walking through the club and maybe that's not, the standard you want to set? It's every part of that club that they have attention to. And the team had to buy into that as well. And, I think that's one thing we often reflect on at La Trobe Financial. You've got a role as a leader, but the team need to buy in as well.
Okay, I love that. Thank you. Let's have another fish. Isn't this fun?
This is awesome. A little bit more nerve-wracking for me though, Sally.
I like this question. In your experience, what is the best way to get a promotion?
Let me come at that another way, because what I see is folks who miss out on promotions and miss out on careers because they're too, I think the word is impatient. When you sit back and think about a career journey, it's not going to roll out as you expect. You are going to have setbacks. There'll be days when you miss a promotion and the person who get it, you might think to yourself, they're a muppet. That happens. That's called normal life. And if I think about the advice that I hear often bandied about to young people in their careers, it's, don't stay in a role too long. I'm quite the opposite. If you spend 3 years in 20 roles, you'll be mediocre at 20 things, and you'll have 20 groups of people who you might vaguely remember a little bit about. How about instead you apply yourself to something that you really love with a group of people who you admire and respect, and then get very good by spending a lot of time in that discipline? And if you have that approach, opportunities will open up. Have a look at anyone who you admire in any walk of life, whether it's sport, the arts, business, politics. They've applied themselves for years. They've done what in footy we'd call the unrewarded running. They've done a whole lot of running where no one's seen them, they've got no pats on the back, and they've just kept at it with faith that if they keep presenting themselves in the best possible way, opportunities will present. Fine to move around a bit at the start of your career and find the right box, but I also think that once you've found that, you want to really knuckle down and spend some time getting to know some people. I've been at La Trobe nearly 20 years now, and there's real relationships that you form with people when you spend that time. And, post La Trobe, we will have genuine, warm, deep relationships from the time that we've spent together with our shoulder at the wheel at La Trobe. And that's something pretty special. And if I'd had 6 roles across that period, I wouldn't be able to say that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I love that idea of friendship and making long-lasting friendships. I'm going to have another fish in the box on your behalf, so stay tuned. Here we go. What's the piece of advice you would give your younger self?
My advice to myself, not that I probably would have listened, truthfully, Sally, would be just to cool your jets, calm down, focus on the issue. There's a natural tendency for young people to come in and you want to prove yourself. And I think that's where it comes from. And you want to show that you're capable, and you want to sort of be able to stand your ground. And I think looking at it, down the track, you realize that actually, your older colleagues, they're not judging you for being young. They're not judging you for this being your first rodeo in that particular area. Really, if anything, you're being judged for your judgment, your temperament, your ability to moderate yourself, understand the issue, and not be dying on the wrong hills, so to speak. Everyone's journey is different. So I offer this, just gently, and in case it helps someone. But it transformed for me the day I just stumbled on this form of words. So whenever anyone walked into my office, or whatever situation I was in, my first response was always, how can I help? I really noticed that just changed the atmospherics of the room. It was, okay, here's the two of us. We're thinking about this issue, whether it's operations, whether it's a customer issue, whether it's a financial markets issue, whether it's a tech issue. If I can rewire that conversation, rewire the way I'm thinking about it to how can I help, suddenly you've got a platform for actually delivering an outcome that suits everyone.
I love that. On that note, I'm glad to say you have passed the Chatterbox section with flying colours. And thank you for trusting me in picking the questions for you. I'm now, Chris, going to ask you one last question, and that is, if you weren't leading La Trobe Financial, what do you think you would be doing?
I have 4 amazing kids and the most extraordinary wife. So, I would be very deeply fulfilled spending lots and lots of time with those beautiful young souls. They're absolutely amazing. So filling my time between them and the broader family would be no trouble at all. But I am one of those people who like to be busy, Sally. So if it weren't La Trobe Financial, I would be in another business. I love the opportunity of building businesses, seeing opportunities, getting teams working together on common problems.
So what gap can you see in the market now that you think you could go and fill and establish and expand a new business?
So Australia is still wildly underinvested in tech. We are, as companies, we are not transforming fast enough, and as an economy, we are not producing enough tech-focused businesses. We need entrepreneurs to step up and identify opportunities and execute on them. Lots of wonderful ideas being produced in technology at the moment, but one area that's a huge gap is actually iterating what already exists into organisations across the country. We've seen this massive productivity stagnation, the opportunity for automation and AI technologies to transform manual processes and unleash the creative juices of the wonderful workforce we have in Australia is almost incalculable. So that would be an area that I would be focused on.
Terrific. I wish you all the best in that. Chris, our time is up. I love the way that you talk about motivation. Motivation is just the start. It's the habit forming that really counts. So form habits. I really think your advice about putting ego to one side is fantastic. And I love that question, how can I help you? It just changes the nature of the conversation. And I really like your advice to younger generations. It's all very well to flish around a little bit in your early career, but find something and stick at it, because that is what is going to give you the expertise to open up opportunities and get you further ahead in the long run. So thank you so much for coming in and allowing us to spend 15 minutes with the boss. It's been fabulous.
Thanks, Sally. Really enjoyed it.
And thank you to everyone for listening. If you like the podcast and you want to hear more, consider sharing the podcast or writing a review, as it helps us to reach more people. And follow us wherever you get your podcasts. At the Financial Review, we investigate the big stories about markets, business and power. For more, go to afr.com, and you can subscribe to the Financial Review, the daily habit of successful people, at afr.com/subscribe. This podcast was hosted by me, Sally Patton, produced and edited by Mandy Coulin. Head of audio is Alex Gower, and our executive producer is Fiona Buffini.
The Australian Financial Review.